And welcome back to Capital Tonight. It is the fastest growing sport in America, and the mixed martial arts industry is now looking to expand into one of the few states where professional fights are actually currently banned. That is, of course, New York. Today, lobbyists from the Ultimate Fighting Championship were at the Capitol meeting with lawmakers and urging them to pass a bill before the Senate and the Assembly. Joining us now to talk more about this is Mark Ratner. He's the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for the UFC. Mr. Ratner, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Ms. Liz. I'm happy to be here with you.
I appreciate it. So actually, you've been trying for this since 2008, so it's not a new effort for you.
That's correct. We've been coming up here the last 3 years, and we're just doing education, talking about health and safety, and we're making inroads every year.
I want to just show the viewers this map. You don't need to see the details. What you really need to see is that it's all green with the exception of some gray area right here. And then over here is this yellow spot, right? This yellow spot is New York, Connecticut, and I think that's Rhode Island, isn't it?
Vermont.
Vermont, okay. These are the areas where the sport is not legal. Otherwise, all of this green area, it's fine. You guys are good to go.
That's correct. There's 48 states that have athletic commissions. Alaska and Wyoming do not, and 45 of the 48 have approved the sport of mixed martial arts.
Okay. The people who are critics say that it's too violent, and we'll get into that in a second. But if you could, for viewers who are not familiar, just explain what we're talking about here.
Well, many years ago when the sport first got started in America, which was 1993, they advertised no holds barred, anything goes, no rules. And at that time, I was with the Nevada State Athletic Commission as a director, and I said we would never be able to, we can't regulate a sport with no rules. In the year 2000, we put in rules called the Unified Rules of Mixed Martial Arts, and that's when we started getting these states to get involved. It started with New Jersey, then Nevada, and has spread to these 45 states. So
when you say that there are rules, I mean, it is not exactly like boxing because it's more free-form, obviously, than boxing is.
You can wrestle, you can use jiu-jitsu, grapple, so there's quite a few different disciplines.
All right, but the rules are what then?
There are certain prohibitions that you cannot do. You can't put your hand in somebody's mouth, and it's called fish hooking. You can't hit them in the groin. You can't hit them behind the head. Just those kind of rules, sportsmanship rules. We have referees, we have rounds, we have judges, so we're very much health and safety conscious.
And you've never had a death?
That's correct. I've been involved in over 1,000 individual bouts as a director of the Nevada Commission as well as with the UFC, and the worst, most serious injury was a broken arm.
That's it?
Yeah, there's cuts and contusions, but...
And you can also tap out, right? That's how you end that's how you end a match, and this is not something necessarily you can do in boxing.
Right. You can lose with honor. There was a boxer by the name of Roberto Duran many, many years ago. He turned his back on Sugar Ray Leonard, and it was called no mas. Here, if you get in a hold you can't get out of, you can tap out, and you live to fight another day.
So do you consider it violent?
I had to learn about the sport. I'm a big boxing aficionado. I still love to go to fights. It's a different kind of sport. It's like rugby and soccer, two different sports.
Yeah.
There are, every once in a while, there are certain things that, if you just look at the highlights, if the fans only just see the excerpts of the fights where it shows a knockout, or if you see the whole three rounds, it's not quite. It's different. It's more of a ballet in a lot of ways. There's a lot of strategy involved.
So how are you doing? I mean, what we've seen actually is that some of the people who were dead set against this are now coming around to your way of thinking, in large part because of the rules. For example, former Governor George Pataki, who was around when the ban went into place in New York. He was responsible for it. Now on your side. Is that right? Yes,
that's correct. And the former chairman of the New York State Athletic Commission, a man by the name of Randy Gordon, has completely changed. He at one time, when there was no rules, said we'll never come to New York, and now he's out there as a proponent for the sport. All right, so
and before we even ask that question, there's a considerable amount of revenue that you are suggesting could actually come in to the state.
That is also correct. Besides New York, I just want to say we're having a fight in Toronto April 30th. It's the first time we've ever been in a large arena. We sold 55,000 tickets the first day. It'll gross over $11 million without selling a hotel room.
What is the average age of your ticket buyer, do you know?
Between 18 and 35.
Right. So it skews younger than boxing. Really.
Absolutely younger. Different demo.
Because the reason why I asked is your main opponent in the Assembly has been Bob Riley, who is, of course, local to the Capital Region. He represents Colony. He's a Democrat. And his argument is really, and every argument that you guys have made back to him. He says, that's true, but, and his main overarching issue is violence begets violence. In other words, you teach people who are young violence, and that is, in his opinion, too dangerous and inappropriate. How do you refute that argument?
Well, first of all, I respect Assemblyman Riley. He certainly has his right to his opinion, and I certainly would never say anything more than that. But here's a sport you can watch on cable TV, on pay-per-view television. You can go to a local bars they show it in. The people in New York are watching it. When I check the television ratings, it's all over the place. There's huge, huge ratings here, huge percentage of pay-per-view buys. I completely disagree. More and more kids are learning about it. If you go to, there's martial arts studios everywhere. The military is using this. The police academies are using it. So I certainly disagree that it's begetting more violence.
So when he also suggests that it's just, he did an interview actually, I think it was about a year ago, when he said, well, okay, we could legalize other forms of things that would bring in revenue. We could legalize dog fighting probably. This is what he said in the interview. We could legalize prostitution. These are things that we could generate revenue from. He didn't say, but we could legalize drugs too. We could do a lot of things to bring in revenue in New York. It's not merely a revenue generator when you argue with somebody who is just dead set against something from an ideological standpoint.
And like I say, I certainly respect that, but in my opinion, he is, for his personal views, is holding hostage the fans in New York, saying, well, then drive over to Boston, go to New Jersey, go to Philly. Doesn't make any sense. Is
he the main reason why you can't get this moving in the Assembly Democratic Conference?
I think that he certainly is a proponent against it, but I'm very confident it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Because you made some movement in the Senate today, did you not?
Yes, we did. So we came out of the Tourism Committee. I think the vote was 13-1.
How much money are we talking about revenue-wise?
Well, first of all, we would like to come up to either Albany or to Buffalo or to Rochester, to Syracuse. We would come up upstate as well as New York City. For a show in Buffalo, we did an economic study. We felt the economic return would be between 5 and 7 million. If it was in New York City, between 10 and 12 million.
And what percentage of that would actually stay in New York? Because, I mean, obviously we're talking about something that's based in Vegas, right? So some percentage is going to leave the state. This is another argument that Mr. Riley makes.
When we're talking about, when we say an economic impact, that's hotel rooms, that's the cabs, that's rent-a-cars, that's drinks, that's restaurants.
No, you're not talking about just the gate then. You're talking about
Absolutely
a whole
not.
picture.
I'm talking about all the ancillary things that people are going to buy. That money's all staying in New York.
And where would you envision that you would do this? In the HSBC Arena?
If we go to Buffalo, absolutely. The Times Union here or Madison Square Garden. But here's a little fact that I wanted to tell Mr. Riley. When we come to a town, if we came to Buffalo, between the staff, the employees, the fighters and their camps, and the television production, there is over 200 rooms we rent for a minimum of 3 nights. That's 600 room nights. That's a pretty good mini convention right there before we sell a ticket.
Yeah. Are you sure that there's room in all of these cities to accommodate you guys?
We would definitely check that because it takes over a whole hotel.
Right. So you say if it's not a question of if, but a question of when, rather. I mean, when then? Because like we said, 2008, it is moving. It has been moving. You have sort of people building in your direction, but
it's about education still, and that's what we did today. We talk about the education and what it is about the fighting, and we seem to be making inroads. Politicians change. People they don't always get elected or they retire, and so it's a constant case of education.
And what about the governor?
The governor, I don't think he's come out for it, but I don't believe for sure, but he's against it at all.
No, but also, I mean, the parent company actually was a contributor of his during the 2010 campaign, $74,600. I mean, that should at least get you an ear, if nothing else. I mean, have you managed to meet with them yet?
Well, me personally, I have not. I believe some of our executives have. My part is certainly strictly the regulatory part.
Well, Mr. Renner, it's pretty fascinating, actually. I cannot tell you that I am a fan of MMA. I've never even seen it. But it is nevertheless a really interesting argument, and so I hope that you will come back and talk to us again.
Well, Ms. Liz, it'd be my pleasure. No, we enjoy teaching the people and educating, and it's going to be here.
Okay, well, thanks very much.